I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. It all started a few days ago. Now I'm sitting alone in my basement praying to God whatever is outside will just turn around and leave me alone. On July 25th, I accessed the deep web for the first time after downloading the Tor browser and toying with the idea, but being far too much of a pansy to actually go through with it. On that day though, I manned up and went for it. What's the harm, right? I avoided clicking on anything that didn't have a description on a list of websites, eventually going on to the hidden wiki because it provided a little more information on what I would be clicking on. I only read, never clicking on anything out of fear of what would happen. This is, of course, until I came across a website advertising hitman services. I would never ever hire a hitman for any reason, but I thought to myself that there was no way that was the real thing. I went ahead and clicked the link and read through the website, reading the prices for different services, beatings, killings, made to look like suicides, murder, an accident, maiming. So many options for so many different types of people. I got a little freaked out and minimized the browser, closing my laptop and moving on with the day. When I got home later that evening, I powered my laptop back up and did typical teenager things. Music downloading, Reddit, Facebook, you know. Eventually, I passed out and didn't hear my laptop hit the carpet or anything. The next day, I went about my regular schedule, never even looking at the laptop until the 28th. So, yesterday. I opened the Tor again in the afternoon and let my curiosity get the best of me. I opened it to full screen, which earned me a warning about how it could make tracking me down easier. Not sure how, since my IP address is in Stockholm and I'm nowhere near there. But I shrugged it off and kept scrolling through the wiki. I got curious again and went back to the Hitman site, but it was gone. I've checked the listings and everything. The website is completely gone. A little freaked out, but not really worried, I moved on and back to the regular internet. This brings us to now. I was about to settle down and go to bed when I heard something very unnerving. The crickets and frogs were almost completely silent. I live in the country and the crickets and frogs around my house are wicked loud at night, but there were very few sounds coming in through the windows. I sat still and listened for about an hour, and they slowly began to get louder and louder, so I assumed the danger was gone. Now fully awake, I pulled up my laptop, feeling a little anxious because of the warnings I got browsing the deep web yesterday. In the past 5 minutes, a few things have happened. First, my Tor browser was open and running, even though I had closed it. Second, my webcam was on. And third, the crickets and frogs are still going, and there's someone gently pressing on my bedroom door. My basement bedroom door. The threat never left. The threat just somehow moved inside my house. I'm typing this from my phone in my closet, trying desperately not to lose my mind. I'm trapped, guys, and I don't know what's happening. Please, help me.
So, this is my first story here, and I want to talk about someone who was in my life that turned out to be a horrible person. Just to let you know, I'm 23 now, and this started when I was 9 years old. I'm going to start with saying he never did any of this to me. But I was living in the house at the time it did. Backstory, when I was a kid, both my mom and dad were both alcoholics. They got into physical fights almost every day. Me and my sister, being protective of my mother, we would try to attack my dad when he hurt her, even though I was only 9 and my sister was 14. It never ended well. He beat us too. Cops were always called, until the day he attacked all of us and got arrested for the last time. That's where we met Steve. He was the responding officer to the domestic call. Right off the bat, he and my mom got an attraction, and sooner or later they started dating, even though it was barely a month after my father got arrested. They started talking every day. Then they started dating and had a normal relationship. I thought he was the nicest guy I've met. He'd buy us gifts, take us places, do anything to make us happy. They dated for maybe close to a year and a half, and then they broke up. I remember not long after, my mom told me something that made my skin crawl. She told me that during the time they were dating, he came over and said he was going to the washroom. It took him a long time, so my mom went upstairs to see what was going on, and she caught him in my sister's room, sniffing her underpants. She never broke it off, because she was the type of person who always wanted to feel needed, even if it put me and my sister in danger. I blame it on the alcohol. He always tried to stay in me and my mom's life, even though she was dating other men. June 15th, 2007, when I was 15 years old, my mom passed away. She had brain aneurysm and was put to life support for 2 days before we could say goodbye. Behold, Steve showed up to the hospital to say goodbye. It was very nice of him, but I didn't know how he knew. She passed the next day, and since I was in foster care the time it happened, I was placed in a teen psych ward in the same hospital for a month and a half on suicide watch. Nobody in my family came to visit. Nobody. But guess what? Steve came every single day. He would take me out if they let me. Bought new pool cues and ping pong paddles for all the kids. He was always there. When I got let out of the foster care system, they let me move into his house. Now let me say, this is where I got messed. 1 week before I got let out was my birthday, so they let me have a weekend visit for 2 days away from the hospital. As a gift, he bought me a brand new Mac laptop, brand new cell phone, headphones, and all that jazz. I was excited to set everything up over the weekend. I downloaded free music, and back in time, there was a program called LimeWire. I'm sure most remember it, so I went to Steve's computer since he had the program to download new music to transfer onto my Mac. That's when its download history came up. It was all videos of children porn, videos that were titled 4-year-old tied up and gagged, and 3-year-old gangbanged. I freaked. I knew what it was, and this is where I will get the award for stupidity. I said nothing. I was tired of being placed in foster home to foster home for 5 years, so I said nothing. I was actually scared as fuck to move in, I won't lie. I was there for about 5 months until I went to his computer to download more music. It did slip my mind until the new videos came up, and that's when I got terrified. He had never done anything to me, but I started realizing that he was grooming with me, buying me thousands of dollars of gifts within those months. I'm almost to the point where I think he's gonna maybe, just maybe, touch me. He just started to retire at this time, after 25 years, and was working odd jobs. I had a hospice worker that would visit me every few weeks since my mom passed to make sure I was okay. I finally let it slip. I told her what I found, and the next day I was taken into a new foster home. Months and months of statements later, he got charged with child pornography. They found hundreds of images and over hundreds of videos on his computer. He was sentenced to 9 months. I never talked to him since, but I've been following the media. A year after he got out, he was arrested again for more pornography and assault with a deadly weapon. Turns out he sexually assaulted and attacked the nurse who would come in and check on his 87-year-old stepmom, who also lived with us. After the first case came out, another girl came forward to finally tell her story. He abused her. Back in the 90s, he groomed himself to get close to the mother, then got close to the daughter and abused her. It shook me. It sounded all too familiar. She said it was because I came forward that she finally had the courage to stand up and come out against him. I feel that was the biggest win of all this. I feel blessed that I was able to help her come forward. I honestly don't know how much time he got for that, but not long after I searched his name again. He is now suing the police force here for being too aggressive with him and tackling him in his driveway when he has a bad back. Yeah, right. I haven't heard anything since, but to this day I feel blessed that he didn't attempt anything with me. I don't know if he ever thought about it, but I know he's a sick person. Just to throw it out there, his defense in court was, I had the videos so I could try to find children and help them. Good one. I will leave below a few articles from the cases from where I first caught him, and I'll try to find the most recent. Thank you guys for sticking with me for this long. As I finished typing this story, I decided to Google his name one more time. Apparently he's found not guilty for hurting this poor child. The one that came up because of me. I find that sick.
This encounter is real, and happened to me 6 years ago when I was 16. For context, I'm female. I live in New England, a northeastern region of the United States, where the winters are very snowy, with long, cold, dark nights and short days. One such night in February, I was alone in my parents' house, which is in a safe, quiet suburban neighbourhood where the houses are within about 100 feet of each other. My parents had divorced years before and were still on good terms. So when my mum decided to sell the childhood home, my dad bought it so I could continue living there. While in the process of moving, neither of my parents stayed at the house for a couple of nights, and only my room upstairs had furniture. The rest of the house was mostly empty, with boxes scattered about, and the internet had not yet been switched over, so I often sat at the far end of the living room and mooched off of our neighbour's Wi-Fi. It was fun not having my parents there for a couple of nights, so I stayed up late with my new laptop and surfed the web into the early hours of the morning. During my second night of being alone, it snowed late into the evening, and I sat in the dark living room on a folding chair with only my laptop screen for light, with snow falling quietly outside. The neighbourhood was silent, as cars don't usually drive past 10 at night, and neighbours stay inside to keep warm. At 2:30 AM, I decided to head to bed, and was wrapping up the internet activities for the night when I heard 3 very slow, quiet knocks on the door, just a few feet away. I immediately closed my laptop, knowing that the bright screen made me very visible to the person outside since the windows weren't covered. I got off my chair and walked very quietly over to the door and knelt down below a window to listen outside. Frozen with fear, I waited for what was probably about 2 full minutes when I heard 3 more identical knocks. They were very slow and would have been too quiet to wake anyone up who had been sleeping. I gathered the courage to look outside through the window and saw a dark figure standing very close to the front door, dressed in a black winter coat and black pants. A hood pulled over his head had obscured his face and hair, and he stood still with his arms to his sides. I contemplated calling the police, but ultimately decided to continue waiting. I moved back away from the door, away from the window, and after about 2 minutes had passed, I could see the man walking down the walkway past the front of the house, leaving. Suddenly he stopped, turned around and looked directly at the window, through which I watched him. About 15 seconds passed as we stared at each other, but I couldn't see his face under the darkness of his hood. Finally he turned around and walked down the driveway and down the street. He didn't stop at any other houses, just continued down the street in the falling snow, and I watched him for about 10 minutes until he faded into the darkness. As far as I know, this has not happened since then. I still live in that house, and occasionally have nightmares in which this scene replays itself, except that in the dreams, I open the door for him,